My husband laughed when I couldn't find work for 3 years, called me a failure in front of his entire office, and told everyone I'd never amount to anything without him. They all joined in, mocking me, pitying me, treating me like I was some charity case who needed saving. But none of them knew the truth. That luxury office building they walked into every single day, the one with the marble lobby and the gleaming glass exterior worth $14 million? I owned it. Every brick, every beam, every square foot. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're a subscriber, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. And when I finally revealed that truth, the look on his face was worth every humiliating second I'd endured. I walked into the living room with my phone. Aaron saw my face. I'd practiced this expression in the mirror, the perfect blend of disappointment and resignation, and his lips curled into something that looked almost like satisfaction. Another rejection? He asked, not even pretending to care. That's what, number 40? 50? I've lost count, I said quietly, which was true. The real number didn't matter anymore. Aaron immediately called Kevin on speaker, like my failure was breaking news that needed to be shared. You'll never believe this, Olivia got rejected again today. Some marketing firm she was convinced would hire her. Kevin's laughter echoed through our apartment. Seriously? Man, at this point, maybe it's time to accept reality. 3 years is a pretty clear message from the universe. They laughed together while I stood in the doorway, letting their cruelty wash over me like I had for the past 3 years. Every word was being recorded by devices I had installed throughout the apartment. Every laugh, every joke, every casual dismissal, all documented. Aaron ended the call and launched into his usual speech. Look, Olivia, I'm not trying to be harsh, but 3 years is a long time. Maybe it's time to lower your expectations. Apply for retail positions, administrative work, something entry-level. You can't keep holding out for these marketing director roles when clearly, no one wants to hire you for them. He said it so kindly, like he was doing me a favor. Like his condescension was actually concern. I'll keep trying, I said, the words I'd rehearsed 1,000 times. That's all I ask. He kissed the top of my head like I was a child. I believe in you, even when you can't believe in yourself. The apartment, my apartment, purchased in 2019 with cash from my trust fund, felt smaller every day. Not because of the space, but because Aaron's presence seemed to expand to fill every corner, pushing me into smaller and smaller areas of my own life. 20 minutes later, Regina showed up unannounced. She had a key, something that had bothered me since the day Aaron gave it to her without asking. Oh darling, she said when she saw me, voice dripping with false sympathy. Aaron told me about another rejection. I'm starting to worry about you. She settled onto my couch, though she thought it was Aaron's couch, and pulled out her phone. I've been thinking. Marjorie's son runs a dental practice. They need a receptionist. It's only $35,000 a year, but at least it's something. At least you'd be contributing. Contributing to the household that I financed through carefully structured trusts and accounts Aaron knew nothing about. I'll think about it, I said. Don't think too long. Opportunities like this don't wait for people who've been unemployed for 3 years. She stood, smoothing her designer skirt, the one she'd bought on a Mediterranean cruise I'd secretly paid for through a company wellness program. Aaron's a patient man, but even patience has limits. After Regina left, Aaron casually mentioned his plans for Friday night. I'm having some people from work over. Nothing fancy, just drinks and dinner. You'll cook, right? I told everyone you're great in the kitchen. He knew I hated cooking elaborate meals. I'd mentioned it dozens of times. But that was exactly why he was asking, another small test, another opportunity to watch me comply. Of course, I said. Perfect. Kevin's bringing his new girlfriend, Taylor, and his wife are coming, Joseph and Harriet too. Maybe 8 people total. He pulled out his phone, already texting. This is good for you, you know. Socializing with successful people. Maybe some of their ambition will rub off. That night, after Aaron fell asleep, I did what I'd done every night for 3 years. I went to our walk-in closet, Aaron sighed, ironically, and pressed my thumb against what looked like an ordinary coat hook. The biometric scanner hidden beneath blinked green, and a section of the wall slid open. My real office was small but contained everything that mattered. 3 monitors showed live feeds from my properties across Chicago. The building at 800 West Madison Street, Aaron's office, dominated the center screen. I pulled up my accounts. The trust fund my grandfather had left me when he died 11 years ago, when I was 23. For 7 years, everything had been locked down while I learned the business. Then, 4 years ago, I'd turned 30 and gained full control of a commercial real estate portfolio worth $47 million. The Van Patten Industries building was the crown jewel. 15 stories at 800 West Madison Street, overlooking the Chicago River. Current market value, $14.2 million. It was my largest single asset, and Aaron's company paid me $185,000 monthly to occupy floors 8 through 14. I opened the calendar. November 15th was circled in red, the lease renewal negotiation. Aaron was leading his company's team, completely unaware he'd be negotiating with entities that ultimately answered to his wife. 4 years ago, I met Aaron at a networking event, just months after I'd gained full control of my inheritance. 3 years ago, we got married. 2 years ago, I staged my job loss to test whether he could love me without my success. For 24 months, I've documented every cruel word, every public humiliation, every moment he proved he couldn't. The test was supposed to last 6 months. Maybe a year. But Aaron's cruelty had a momentum of its own, getting worse as his confidence grew. And I'd become addicted to the documentation, to the certainty that when I finally revealed the truth, I'd have mountains of evidence proving I was right to leave. My phone buzzed. A text from my younger sister Brienne. Please tell me you're finally done pretending. I didn't respond. Not yet. But soon. I looked at the monitors one more time. Aaron's office building, gleaming in the Chicago night. My building. My property. My leverage. November 15th was 3 weeks away. 3 more weeks of playing the failure, the burden, the wife who couldn't contribute. 3 more weeks of watching Aaron perform his success in a building I owned. Then everything would change. Aaron left for work an hour ago, kissing me on the forehead like I was a child before reminding me to spend the day being productive. The moment his car pulled out of the garage, I was out of bed. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. I walked to the far end of our walk-in closet, Aaron sighed, ironically, and pushed aside his expensive suits, the ones he charged to cards I'd secretly been paying off for 2 years. Behind them, mounted flush against the wall, was what looked like an ordinary coat hook. I pressed my thumb against it. The biometric scanner hidden beneath blinked green, and a section of the wall slid open with a soft pneumatic hiss. My real office was small, just 8 feet by 6, but it contained everything that mattered. 3 monitors mounted on the wall showed live feeds from various properties I owned across Chicago. The building at 800 West Madison Street, Aaron's office, took up the center screen. I could see the morning rush of employees flooding through the lobby, badging through security, grabbing overpriced coffee from the cafe on the first floor that paid me $8,500 monthly rent. I pulled up my primary email account. Not the Gmail address Aaron knew about, the one I used for online shopping and book club messages. This was olivia.m.newark@newarkholdings.com. My inbox had 43 unread messages from the last 12 hours alone. I opened the dashboard that showed my complete holdings. My grandfather, Martin Newark, died when I was 23, 11 years ago in 2013. He'd made his fortune in commercial real estate during the Chicago boom of the 1980s and 90s. When he passed, he left everything to me, not to my father, who disappointed him by becoming a philosophy professor instead of a businessman, and not to my mother, who he never particularly liked. The inheritance came with conditions, though. Everything had to be held in trust until I turned 30. I couldn't access the principal, couldn't sell properties, couldn't do anything except learn. And learn I did. For 7 years, I worked with his hand-picked team of property managers, attorneys, and accountants. I studied commercial real estate law, lease negotiations, property valuation, and market analysis. By the time I turned 30 in 2020, I knew every inch of every property, every tenant, every clause in every contract. That same year, I met Aaron at a networking event. He was charming, ambitious, working his way up at Van Patten Industries. He pursued me as Olivia the marketing director, not Olivia the heiress. I thought maybe, finally, someone could love me for myself. We married a year later, in 2021. And for the first year, it was good. But gradually, after the wedding, he started making comments about my job. How it wasn't as important as his. How my salary was cute compared to his corporate income. The condescension crept in slowly, like water seeping through a crack. 2 years ago, in 2022, I made a decision. I staged my termination from the fake marketing firm I'd created as a cover. I wanted to know if Aaron could love someone he perceived as beneath him. Someone who needed him instead of the other way around. He failed immediately. That first night, he was already calling friends to mock me. Within a week, he'd created that group chat. Within a month, he'd established himself as my superior in every way. The Van Patten Industries building was the crown jewel of my portfolio. 15 stories, 287,000 square feet of Class A office space. Current market value, $14.2 million, my largest single asset in a portfolio worth $47 million. Annual rental income from this building alone, $2.22 million. Aaron's company occupied floors 8 through 14, roughly 60% of the building. Their current lease expired December 31st, just over 2 months away. At 7:30, right on schedule, my phone rang. Patricia Irwin, my head property manager. She'd worked for my grandfather for 30 years and was the only person besides my sister Brienne who knew about my double life. Morning, Olivia. I have the occupancy reports you requested. I pulled up the shared document on my second monitor. I'm seeing the vacancy rate at Madison is still under 4%. That's excellent. The cafe space on the first floor just signed a 5-year extension. And I got a call yesterday from Van Patten Industries CFO. They want to schedule preliminary lease renewal discussions. My heart rate barely changed. I'd been expecting this. Who's leading their negotiation team? Aaron Van Patten, according to their email. They're requesting a meeting for next week. I allowed myself a small smile. Schedule it for November 15th, 2 p.m. At our Michigan Avenue offices, not at the property. I want them off their home turf. Will you be attending personally? Yes. But they won't know it's me. Use the corporate veil. Northwest Property Holdings LLC will be the entity at the table. Make sure all correspondence goes through the LLC's generic email and phone number. Understood. And Olivia? The attorney called about your divorce papers. They're ready for review whenever you want to proceed. I hadn't told Patricia I was filing. She just assumed, correctly, that this was where everything was heading. Not yet. I want the lease negotiation to begin first. I want Aaron to feel confident, secure in his position. After hanging up with Patricia, I opened my laptop's browser and navigated to my former employer's website. Martin & Associates Marketing wasn't real. Well, it was registered as an LLC, had a professional website, even had a small office in River North that Patricia managed. But it existed primarily as my cover story, a place where I could claim to work while actually managing my real estate empire. For 2 years, I'd maintained the charade. I'd go to that office 3 days a week, sit at a desk, respond to fake emails, create mock marketing campaigns for non-existent clients. The receptionist, who was paid generously to maintain the illusion, would greet me like a real colleague. When Aaron asked about my day, I'd have stories prepared, difficult clients, challenging projects, office politics. 2 years ago, I'd lost that job. Walked into that office, packed up the small amount of personal items I kept there for appearances, and walked out. The receptionist had played her part perfectly, even giving me a sympathetic hug. Since then, for 24 months, I'd been job hunting. Sending applications to real companies who'd reject me, and fake companies who'd also reject me. Building a paper trail of failure that Aaron could point to as proof of my inadequacy. Most people don't understand how family trusts work, which is exactly why they're so useful. My grandfather had set up a Byzantine network of LLCs, holding companies, and trusts. The Van Patten Industries building was owned by Northwest Property Holdings LLC, which was managed by Chicago Commercial Ventures Ltd., which was controlled by the Martin R. Newark Family Trust, of which I was the sole beneficiary and trustee. Aaron could search property records until his eyes bled, and he'd never find my name connected to that building. He'd find corporate entities with registered agents and P.O. boxes. He'd find layers and layers of legitimate but deliberately obscuring legal structures. I pulled up my schedule for the coming weeks. Today, meeting with my attorney to discuss the divorce timeline. Tomorrow, lunch with Brienne, who'd been begging me to end this charade for months. Friday, Aaron's dinner party, where I'd play the humiliated, unemployed wife one more time. November 15th, the lease negotiation where Aaron would sit across from my representatives, never knowing he was negotiating with his own wife. I had the day circled in red. That was the day I'd planned for Aaron to begin understanding what he'd lost, though he wouldn't know it yet. The realization would come slowly, piece by piece, like a puzzle assembling itself in reverse. I shut down the monitors and closed the hidden office. The walls slid back into place silently. By the time I emerged from the closet, I was just Olivia again, unemployed, dependent, small. But only on the surface. For 24 months, I'd played this role. 24 months of documentation, of evidence gathering, of watching Aaron reveal exactly who he was when he thought there were no consequences. The performance was almost over. In 3 weeks, on November 15th, the first domino would fall. And Aaron wouldn't even know what hit him. I was sitting in a Starbucks near our apartment, laptop open, supposedly working on job applications. In reality, I was reviewing third-quarter financials for my properties. That's when Kevin Sidney walked in with Taylor Knox and Joseph Irwin from Aaron's office. Kevin spotted me and his face lit up with malicious glee. Olivia. Job hunting at Starbucks? That's ambitious. He said it loud enough that several customers turned to look. They surrounded my table without invitation. The guys wanted to meet Aaron's wife, Kevin said. I've told them so much about you. Taylor leaned forward. Aaron mentioned you've been looking for work for 3 years. That's persistent. Kevin pulled out his phone, showing them the VP crew group chat. I could see messages from the past week, Aaron mocking my unemployment, jokes about me spending his money, crude comments about what I'd have to do to earn my keep now. The chat had at least 20 members, all laughing at my expense. Aaron's going places, Kevin said. Executive VP announcement coming after the lease negotiation. He's going to be making serious money. He paused meaningfully. Good thing, since you'll be completely dependent on him now. Taylor snapped a photo of me before I could protest. Perfect. Aaron will love this. Within seconds, he'd added it to the group chat with the caption, Day 847 of unemployment, still searching. They left 15 minutes later, their laughter echoing through the coffee shop. Every word was now part of my documentation. The apartment smelled of my failure. I'd spent 3 hours preparing food for Aaron's dinner party, roasted chicken, elaborate sides, fresh bread that cost $40 I didn't mention. My feet ached, and I had a burn on my wrist. 8 guests arrived at 7 p.m., Kevin and his girlfriend Lynette, Taylor and his wife Harriet, Joseph and his fiancée Harriet, Regina and her friend Diane. Aaron greeted them like royalty while I remained invisible in the kitchen. Olivia made everything, Aaron announced. She's got plenty of time for cooking now. Regina examined my bruschetta critically. The basil is wilted, dear. You have to use it immediately. But I suppose you're still learning. Lynette offered fake sympathy. Kevin told me about the 3 years. That must feel like forever. We ran into her at Starbucks, Kevin said, pulling out his phone. Show them the photo, Taylor. They passed the phone around, studying my coffee shop defeat like a museum piece. Job hunting in public, Harriet observed. Courage or desperation? Regina clicked her wine glass down. Olivia, did you apply to that dental office position? All eyes turned to me, standing in the doorway with stuffed mushrooms growing cold. Not yet, I admitted. Not yet? You can't afford to be picky. That position won't wait forever. Aaron took the tray from my hands. The truth is, Olivia's never had to hustle. Her previous job was basically a vanity position. No real pressure, no real stakes. Unlike the lease negotiation you're leading, Joseph said. That's real pressure. $2.22 million annually, Aaron corrected, chest puffing. It's the biggest negotiation of my career. I stood frozen, listening to my husband discuss financial details of a contract he'd be negotiating with me. Kevin raised his glass. To Aaron, future executive VP and the guy who's going to save Van Patten Industries a fortune on rent. The room erupted in toasts. Aaron turned to me, magnanimous. Honey, can you bring out dinner? Through the doorway, I could hear them dissecting Aaron's brilliant strategy, his inevitable promotion. Not one asked how I was doing. By 11:30, the last guest had left. Aaron, drunk and loose-tongued, pulled me to the couch and showed me the group chat from the evening. They'd been live texting my humiliation while eating my food, drinking my wine, sitting on my furniture. Taylor, Olivia's serving us like she's auditioning for a reality show. Kevin, thinks she realizes she's basically Aaron's employee now? Aaron, she's trying her best. First time entertaining without a career to fall back on. 37 messages, mocking me in real time. I need you to understand something, Aaron said, his voice harder now. Your value is in supporting me. You're not a career woman. You're my wife, and your job is to make my life easier so I can focus on what actually matters. He stood, swaying. The lease negotiation is November 15th. I need you to stay out of my way that entire week. This promotion depends on me nailing this deal. I understand, I whispered. After he stumbled to bed, I sat alone, surrounded by dirty glasses and the echo of their cruelty. Every word recorded. Every laugh documented. Every moment of evidence I'd need. My sister Brienne called while Aaron was in the shower. Tell me you're done, she said. Tell me Friday night was the last time you're playing this character. Almost. 3 more weeks. Liv, he showed you that group chat. He's not even pretending to respect you anymore. Because the lease negotiation is November 15th. He needs to walk in confident, arrogant, completely sure he's about to secure the deal of his career. And then? Then he's going to negotiate with me. Brienne was quiet. You're going to let him fail first, then destroy everything he's built? Exactly. Mom would say this is beneath you. Mom stayed married to Dad for 30 years while he cheated with 3 different graduate students. I'm not interested in her advice. The shower turned off. I have to go. Save the week after Thanksgiving. I'm going to need you there for the ending. Regina arrived at 2 p.m. with a leather portfolio and her friend Diane. They set up at my dining table like a corporate tribunal. This resume is a mess, Regina announced, sliding my marked-up CV across the table. No quantified results. No metrics. No proof of value. She pulled out a prepared list. These are positions you should apply for immediately. Dental office receptionist. Marketing coordinator, not director, you're not qualified anymore. Executive assistant positions. She paused dramatically. And there's an opening for a personal assistant at Van Patten Industries. My blood went cold. At Aaron's company? Yes. I pulled strings with Linda Garrett. It pays $52,000, a third of what you used to make, but beggars can't be choosers. I don't think Aaron would. Aaron thinks it's brilliant, Regina interrupted. I called him this morning. He said having you in the building would be motivating. You'd see real professionals at work. The humiliation was perfectly calculated. Aaron wanted me as a secretary in his building, watching him succeed while I fetched coffee. When's the interview? Thursday, November 9th, 6 days before Aaron's big negotiation. Regina smiled. If you get it, you start the Monday after Thanksgiving. Thank you, I said, meeting her eyes. I really appreciate you looking out for me. After they left, I stared at the marked-up resume. My phone buzzed. Aaron, Mom said you were receptive. Good. Don't screw up the interview. I told Linda you'd be perfect. Don't make me look bad. I photographed the resume with all Regina's red marks and sent it to Patricia. Me, I'm interviewing to be a secretary at my own building. Schedule me for November 9th, make sure someone from Van Patten's executive team watches. Patricia, this is insane. Me, this is necessary. I pulled out my phone and opened the encrypted messaging app. Me, move the November 15th meeting to the Madison Street building. Conference room on the 14th floor. I want Aaron negotiating in his own office without knowing it. Patricia, are you sure? That's risky. Me, I'm sure. I want to be in the room. Not as Olivia Van Patten. As a representative of Northwest Property Holdings. Patricia, he'll recognize you. Me, not if I do it right. I walked to the window. Our apartment overlooked Lake Michigan, the water black and infinite under cloudy skies. In the reflection, I could see myself, the woman Aaron saw as diminished, desperate, grateful. But I'd spent 2 years becoming invisible. 2 years watching him reveal exactly who he was when he thought there were no consequences. November 9th. The interview where I'd play secretary in my own building. November 15th. The negotiation where Aaron would sit across from me without knowing. The week after Thanksgiving. When everything would finally shatter. I'd come too far to stop now. Every piece was in position. Every domino ready to fall. I woke up before Aaron's alarm went off. He was sprawled across the bed, one arm flung over what used to be my side before I'd started sleeping curled up at the edge. I slipped out quietly and headed to the bathroom. The woman in the mirror looked tired. 2 years of this performance had carved subtle lines around my eyes. I'd lost weight, not intentionally, but stress has a way of reshaping you. My hair, once highlighted and professionally styled every 6 weeks, now hung limp and unstyled. I'd become exactly what Aaron wanted, diminished. But not today. I showered quickly and dried my hair straight, pulling it back into a low bun that would read as, trying too hard for an interview. I'd bought a suit from Marshall's 2 weeks ago specifically for this, a gray polyester blend that didn't quite fit right, the shoulders too wide, the pants slightly too short. The kind of suit someone wears when they can't afford better but desperately need to look professional. The shoes were worse. Black pumps with a low heel, scuffed at the toes, bought from a discount store for $24.99. I'd walked around the apartment in them for days to make them look properly worn. Aaron stirred as I was applying makeup, too much foundation, slightly smudged eyeliner, lipstick in a shade that didn't suit my skin tone. Everything about this look screamed, unemployed woman trying desperately to seem put together. Is that what you're wearing? Aaron propped himself up on one elbow, squinting at me. It's my interview. For the assistant position. He nodded slowly, taking in the cheap suit. It's appropriate. You look like someone who needs the job. That's good, desperation is honest. He swung his legs out of bed. What time's your interview? 9 o'clock. I have a meeting at 9:30 on the 14th floor. Might swing by afterward to see how you did. He said it casually, like he was doing me a favor by checking in. Linda's tough but fair. Just be yourself, grateful, eager, willing to learn. I nodded, applying another layer of the wrong lipstick shade. Erin headed to the shower, and I finished getting ready in the bedroom. The final touch was a folder I'd assembled, copies of my fake resume, a list of references from people who didn't exist, and a handwritten cover letter I'd deliberately filled with minor grammatical errors. It was a masterpiece of manufactured inadequacy. The building looked different when you approached it as a supplicant instead of an owner. The glass facade reflected the morning sun, making it almost difficult to look at directly. The revolving doors spun constantly with the morning rush of employees, all of them confident, caffeinated, purposeful. I joined the flow, clutching my discount folder against my chest. The lobby was exactly as I designed it when I'd renovated 3 years ago, marble floors imported from Italy, a living wall of plants along the east side, modern light fixtures that cost $15,000 each. The security desk sat in the center like an altar, and I approached it with my visitor badge request ready. Olivia Van Patten for a 9 o'clock interview with Linda Garrett, I said softly to the security guard, Marcus, though I pretended not to know his name. He checked his computer, then handed me a visitor badge. 14th floor, suite 1420. Elevators are to your right. I thanked him and headed toward the elevator bank. Around me, Van Patten Industries employees swiped their badges and headed to the dedicated elevators on the left. I joined the visitors and delivery people on the right, watching the numbers climb with agonizing slowness. The elevator stopped at the 3rd floor, and 2 women in expensive suits got on, deep in conversation about a client presentation. They didn't even glance at me. I was furniture, backdrop, irrelevant. At the 10th floor, 3 more people entered. One of them was Kevin Sidney. His eyes swept over me and away, no recognition at all. I was just another desperate job seeker in a cheap suit. He continued his phone conversation, something about lunch plans, as if I didn't exist. The 14th floor arrived. I stepped out into a hallway I knew intimately, having reviewed the architectural plans a dozen times. The carpet was new. I'd approved the replacement last month, a subtle herringbone pattern in navy and gray. Original artwork lined the walls, pieces I'd selected from a gallery in River North. Suite 1420 was at the end of the hall. Through the glass doors, I could see the Van Patten Industries logo, a stylized VP in corporate blue. The reception area was pristine, with leather chairs and a massive desk where a young woman sat typing. I pushed through the doors. I'm here for a 9 o'clock interview with Linda Garrett. The receptionist, Stephanie, according to her nameplate, smiled professionally. Of course. You're Olivia Van Patten? Please have a seat. Can I get you water or coffee? Water, please. She brought it in a glass tumbler with the company logo. I sipped it slowly, watching employees move through the space. Some were rushing with files and coffee cups. Others clustered around cubicles, discussing projects. This was the heartbeat of Van Patten Industries, the daily rhythm of a company that paid me $185,000 monthly to exist in this space. At 9:03, a woman emerged from the interior offices. Linda Garrett was in her early 50s, with steel gray hair cut in a sharp bob and glasses that made her look perpetually skeptical. She'd worked for Van Patten Industries for 12 years, and according to her file, she was excellent at her job but had a reputation for being difficult with new hires. Olivia Van Patten? She didn't offer her hand. Follow me. I stood, clutching my folder, and followed her through the maze of cubicles to a small conference room. Through the interior windows, I could see Aaron's office 3 doors down. His light was on, jacket hung on his chair, but he wasn't there yet. Linda sat and gestured for me to do the same. She opened a folder, my application materials, and scanned them with a critical eye. So, she began, not looking up. You were a marketing director at. She paused, squinting at the resume. Martin and Associates. I'm not familiar with them. They're a small boutique firm, I said, keeping my voice deferential. Mostly local clients. And you were terminated? The word hung in the air like an accusation. The firm was downsizing. Budget cuts. She made a note. Your resume shows some gaps in employment over the years. What were you doing during those periods? Consulting work. Freelance projects. Meaning you were unemployed. It wasn't a question. I nodded, allowing myself to look embarrassed. This position pays $52,000 annually. That's significantly less than your previous salary. Are you comfortable with that reduction? I'm comfortable with any opportunity to contribute, I said, using the exact phrase Regina had coached me to say. Linda's expression didn't change. The role reports directly to me. You'd be handling my calendar, managing correspondence, coordinating meetings, and various administrative tasks. It's demanding work with little recognition. Why do you want it? I'd rehearsed this answer carefully. I think I've been operating above my actual skill level. This is an opportunity to build a stronger foundation and learn from someone with real expertise. Something flickered across Linda's face, maybe pity, maybe contempt. You're married to Aaron Van Patten, correct? Senior VP here? Yes. And you're comfortable working in the same building as your husband? Some people find that dynamic challenging. I think it would be motivating, I said quietly. To see him succeed while I'm building my own career. Linda closed the folder. I'll be honest with you, Olivia. Regina Knox called me personally to recommend you. That kind of favor comes with expectations. If I hire you, you'll need to perform flawlessly. Any hint of nepotism or special treatment will reflect badly on both of us. I understand. You'd start the Monday after Thanksgiving if offered the position. Training would be minimal, we'd expect you to be functional within a week. She stood, signaling the interview was over. We have 3 other candidates. I'll let you know by next week. I stood as well, extending my hand. Thank you for the opportunity. Her handshake was brief and professional. She walked me back to reception, then disappeared into the office maze without another word. I was heading toward the elevator when I heard Aaron's voice behind me. Olivia? What are you doing here? I turned. He was walking down the hallway with Kevin and Taylor, all 3 of them in expensive suits carrying coffee from the lobby cafe. Aaron looked genuinely surprised to see me. I had my interview. With Linda Garrett. Understanding dawned on his face, followed by amusement. Right, the assistant position. How'd it go? Kevin and Taylor had stopped too, both of them looking at me with barely concealed smirks. I think it went well, I said softly. That's great, honey. Aaron's tone was encouraging in the way you'd speak to a child who'd just shown you a mediocre drawing. Linda's particular about who she hires, but Mom put in a good word. I'm sure that helped. We should get to our meeting, Taylor said, checking his watch. Lease negotiation prep. Aaron nodded, then looked back at me. Will you be okay getting home? As if I needed help navigating a city I'd lived in my entire life. I'll be fine. Good. I'll see you tonight. Maybe we can celebrate, preliminary celebration, at least. He smiled. The interview's a good step. They walked away, already deep in conversation about rent reduction strategies and negotiation leverage points. I watched them disappear into a conference room, then pressed the elevator button. The descent felt longer than the ascent. When I reached the lobby, I didn't leave through the main entrance. Instead, I turned left, heading toward the service corridor that led to the property management offices in the basement. Patricia was waiting in her office, door closed, blinds drawn. Well? She asked as I entered. I pulled off the cheap suit jacket and sank into her leather chair. Linda Garrett thinks I'm a desperate housewife trading on my mother-in-law's connections. Aaron thinks I'm taking a brave first step toward rebuilding my self-worth. And Kevin Sidney looked at me like I was furniture. Perfect, Patricia said, handing me an espresso from the machine in the corner. Everything's on track for the 15th? Everything. I sipped the espresso, letting the bitter heat ground me. Aaron's meeting is at 2 o'clock. Conference Room B. I'll be there as Alexandra Mills, Senior Negotiator for Northwest Property Holdings. Patricia pulled up a photograph on her computer. It showed a woman in her 40s with auburn hair, designer glasses, and a severe expression. Your new look. Wig arrives tomorrow. The glasses are prescription, just clear lenses, but they'll change your face shape. And the suit is Burberry, tailored to make you look taller. I studied the image. Alexandra Mills looked nothing like Olivia Van Patten. She looked like someone who owned buildings, who made million-dollar decisions before breakfast, who wouldn't tolerate disrespect from anyone. 6 days, I said quietly. 6 days, Patricia confirmed. And then Aaron Van Patten is going to negotiate the biggest deal of his career with his own wife, and he won't even know it. I stood in the private bathroom adjacent to Patricia's basement office, transforming myself into Alexandra Mills for the 3rd time that week. Each practice session had been necessary. The wig needed to look natural, the glasses had to sit at the right angle, the posture had to communicate authority without effort. The auburn wig was expensive, human hair, styled in a sleek bob that skimmed my shoulders. The glasses were oversized, black-framed, making my face look narrower and more severe. I'd practiced speaking in a slightly lower register, eliminating the soft apologetic tone I'd cultivated as Olivia. The Burberry suit was charcoal gray, perfectly tailored, with a subtle pinstripe that made me look taller. Beneath it, a silk blouse in deep burgundy. The shoes were Louboutin heels, 4 inches, bringing me to 5'9". Everything about this outfit cost more than the entire wardrobe Aaron thought I owned. Patricia knocked on the door. They're gathering in conference room B. Aaron just arrived with his team. I took one final look in the mirror. Alexandra Mills stared back, composed, powerful, completely unrecognizable as Aaron's desperate, unemployed wife. Let's go. 1:55 p.m., conference room B, 14th floor. The conference room had floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Chicago River. I'd chosen this room specifically because Aaron had mentioned in passing that it was his favorite. He loved being able to look out over the city during important meetings, feeling like he was on top of the world. Patricia and I arrived first, along with James Chen, the attorney I'd retained to represent Northwest Property Holdings. James was 53, impeccably dressed, and had a reputation for being absolutely ruthless in negotiations. He'd reviewed every clause of the existing Van Patten Industries lease and identified 17 areas where we could apply pressure. We positioned ourselves strategically. I took the seat at the head of the table, James to my right, Patricia to my left with her laptop open to the lease analysis. 3 leather portfolios sat in front of us, each containing documents that would destroy Aaron's negotiation strategy piece by piece. At 2 o'clock, the door opened. Aaron entered first, radiating confidence. Behind him came Kevin Sidney, Taylor Knox, and 2 other men I recognized from employee files, Daniel Park, the CFO, and Marcus Webb, head of operations. They were Aaron's dream team, assembled to secure the best possible lease terms for Van Patten Industries. Aaron's eyes swept over us, landing on me with zero recognition. I was just another corporate suit, another obstacle between him and his promotion. Alexandra Mills, I said, standing and extending my hand. Senior negotiator for Northwest Property Holdings. This is James Chen, our legal counsel, and Patricia Irwin, our property management director. Aaron's handshake was firm, aggressive. Aaron Van Patten, Senior VP at Van Patten Industries. Thanks for meeting with us. They settled into seats across from us. Aaron directly opposite me, Kevin to his left, Daniel to his right. The power positions, or so they thought. Let's get started, Aaron began, pulling out his own folder. We've occupied floors 8 through 14 of this building for 6 years. We're a stable, reliable tenant, and we're prepared to sign a new 5-year lease today if the terms are right. Define right, I said, my voice cool. Aaron smiled, the smile of someone who thought they had all the leverage. We're currently paying $185,000 monthly. That's $2.22 million annually. For a 5-year commitment, we're proposing a reduced rate of $155,000 monthly. That's still over $9 million guaranteed revenue for your holding company. The audacity was breathtaking. He wanted a $30,000 monthly reduction, $360,000 annually, while acting like he was doing us a favor. James made a note on his legal pad, his expression unchanging. That's a 16% reduction in rental income, Patricia said, her fingers flying over her laptop. Can you justify that decrease? Kevin leaned forward. The commercial real estate market in Chicago has softened. Vacancy rates downtown are up 8% from last year. You're looking at potentially months of empty space if we walk. Our offer provides stability. I let the silence stretch, watching Aaron's confidence grow with each passing second. He thought he had us cornered. Interesting analysis, I said finally. Let me share some numbers of our own. Patricia turned her laptop screen toward them. The vacancy rate for Class A office space in the West Loop, which is where this building is located, is actually 3.2%, the lowest in the city. We have a waiting list of 7 companies interested in occupying premium space in this building. 3 of them are willing to pay above current market rate for the prestige of this address. Aaron's smile faltered slightly. James opened his portfolio. Additionally, your current lease includes several clauses that Van Patten Industries has been violating for the past 18 months. Unauthorized modifications to the office space without landlord approval, exceeding the maximum occupancy limits on 3 floors, and subletting conference room space to external clients without revenue sharing. He slid a document across the table. It was a detailed list of lease violations, each one documented with dates, photographs, and estimated financial impact. Daniel Park, the CFO, went pale as he scanned the list. I wasn't aware of. Of course you weren't, I interrupted smoothly. Because the previous property management team was inattentive. Northwest Property Holdings acquired this building's management contract 8 months ago, and we've been conducting a comprehensive audit of all tenant activities. Aaron was recovering, leaning back in his chair with forced casualness. Look, if there are some technical violations, we can address those. But let's not lose sight of the bigger picture. Van Patten Industries is a growing company. We're planning to expand to 200 employees within 3 years. You want us as long-term tenants. Do we? I asked, meeting his eyes directly for the first time. He blinked, uncertain. I opened my own portfolio. Let me share what we know about Van Patten Industries' financial situation. Your revenue last quarter was down 12% from projections. You've lost 3 major clients in the past 6 months. Your stock price has dropped 23% since January. And I paused, letting the tension build. Your board of directors is currently reviewing whether to relocate headquarters to a less expensive market. Indianapolis has been mentioned. So has Milwaukee. The room went absolutely silent. How do you? Taylor started, then stopped. We conduct due diligence on all our tenants, James said calmly. It's standard practice. Aaron's jaw was tight. Our financials are confidential. Your SEC filings are public record, I countered. As are your quarterly reports to shareholders. Did you really think we'd negotiate a multi-million-dollar lease without understanding your actual financial position? Kevin tried to recover the momentum. Even if we're facing some headwinds, we're still a solid company with a strong reputation. The Van Patten name means something in this city. I almost laughed. The Van Patten name. Aaron's great-grandfather had founded the original company, true, but that company had been sold in 1987. The current Van Patten Industries had licensed the name, they didn't own it. The whole thing was corporate theater, and Aaron had built his identity around borrowed prestige. Here's our counteroffer, I said, sliding a document across the table. 3-year lease, not 5. Monthly rent of $195,000, that's a 5.4% increase from your current rate. Immediate remediation of all lease violations at your expense, estimated at $85,000. And a personal guarantee from your CEO that if Van Patten Industries relocates or declares bankruptcy, the lease payments continue until the term expires. Aaron stared at the document like it was written in a foreign language. This is unreasonable. A rent increase in this market? That's insane. It's actually below market rate for premium Class A space in this location, Patricia said, turning her laptop to show comparable properties. Similar buildings are charging $210,000 to $225,000 for equivalent square footage. We'll walk, Aaron said, his voice rising. We'll find another building. Please do, I said calmly. We have Brennan and Associates ready to sign a lease for floors 8 through 12 tomorrow. They're offering $165,000 monthly for those 4 floors alone. And Tech Venture Capital wants floors 13 and 14 for $75,000 monthly. That's $240,000 total, significantly more than you're currently paying. Aaron's face went red. You're bluffing. James pulled out 2 more documents, letters of intent from both companies, signed and notarized. He placed them on the table like playing cards. The reality was settling over Aaron's team like a fog. They'd walked in thinking they had leverage, thinking they were negotiating from strength. Instead, they were discovering they were completely expendable. We need to caucus, Daniel Park said quietly. Can you give us 15 minutes? Take 30, I said graciously, standing. We'll be in the adjacent conference room. Patricia, James, and I gathered our materials and moved next door. Through the glass wall, I could see Aaron's team huddled together, their body language screaming panic. Aaron was on his phone, probably calling his CEO or his board chair, looking for guidance that wouldn't come. He's breaking, Patricia observed. Not yet, I said. But soon. 23 minutes later, Aaron knocked on our door. His confidence had evaporated, replaced by barely controlled desperation. We need to find a middle ground, he said. The rent increase is difficult, but we might be able to work with $175,000 monthly. And we can address the violations, though $85,000 seems high. I let him stand there for a moment, waiting for permission to sit. Mr. Van Patten, I said finally, you came into this meeting prepared to demand a 16% discount while your company violates multiple lease terms. Now you're offering a 5% reduction and quibbling over remediation costs that are documented and verified. Do you understand how negotiation works? His hands clenched into fists at his sides. Here's what's going to happen, I continued, my voice hard. You're going to accept our terms, $195,000 monthly, 3-year lease, immediate violation remediation, and the personal guarantee. Or you're going to be out of this building by December 31st, and you're going to explain to your board of directors why you lost your company's prestigious downtown headquarters. You can't. I can, I interrupted. And I will. You have until 5 p.m. today to accept our offer. After that, we move forward with Brennan and Associates. Aaron stared at me, and for just a moment, I saw something flicker in his eyes, a hint of recognition, like his subconscious was trying to tell him something his conscious mind refused to believe. But the moment passed. I'll need to present this to my board, he said finally, his voice hollow. You have until 5, I repeated. Not a minute longer. He left without another word, his team trailing behind him like defeated soldiers. Patricia waited until the door closed. That was brutal. That was necessary, I corrected. But we're not done. Not even close. I sat in Patricia's office, the Alexandra Mills disguise removed, reading Aaron's texts. Aaron, 3:15 p.m., board approved the lease terms. This is humiliating. Aaron, 3:34 p.m., the negotiator was a complete bitch. Aaron, 4:02 p.m., my promotion is probably off the table. 2 years of work destroyed. Aaron, 4:23 p.m., where are you? I need you home. I hadn't responded to any of them. Patricia handed me the signed lease agreement. Daniel Park's signature was shaky. Aaron's was angry, heavy pressure, sharp angles. He agreed to everything, Patricia said. The rent increase, the violations, the personal guarantee. I scanned the document. Execution date, November 15th, term, 3 years, ending November 14th, 2027. My phone buzzed again. Regina, 4:45 p.m., Linda Garrett called. You got the assistant position. You start the Monday after Thanksgiving. At least something is going right. The irony was almost perfect. In 2 weeks, I'd be working as a $52,000 secretary in a building I owned, watching my husband struggle in an office he could barely afford to rent. Aaron was on the couch, suit wrinkled, whiskey in hand. Not his first glass. Where were you? He asked without looking up. Coffee shop. Job searching. He laughed bitterly. You're about to start a $52,000 assistant job while I just destroyed my career negotiating the worst lease deal in company history. What happened? I got eviscerated by some corporate shark who had every number, every violation, every weakness documented. She made me look like an amateur. His eyes were red-rimmed. The promotion is on hold. That's corporate speak for never. Maybe it's not as bad as. It's worse. We're paying more rent, not less. And the CEO had to personally guarantee our payments. It means they think we're a bankruptcy risk. He leaned forward. The worst part? The woman who negotiated, Alexandra Mills, she reminded me of you. My heart stopped. What do you mean? Something about how she looked at me. Like she could see through everything. He shook his head. I'm being paranoid. You could never pull off something like that. You can barely get a job as an assistant. The insult bounced off. I wasn't the woman he thought I was. I'd never been. His phone rang, Kevin. He let it go to voicemail. Seconds later, my phone buzzed. Unknown, this is Kevin Sidney. Is Aaron okay? The team is worried. Aaron grabbed my phone and typed, he's fine. Just needs space. He stood abruptly. I'm going to bed. Don't wake me up. 8:34 p.m. After Aaron's snoring started, I opened my laptop. The lease signing had triggered notifications to my legal team. Everyone was asking, when are you telling him? I opened an email to my divorce attorney, Margaret Chin. Subject, proceed with filing. Margaret. File the divorce papers Monday morning. Serve Aaron at work on Tuesday, November 21st at 10 a.m. In his office, with witnesses. The lease contains Section 12.3, Spousal Income Consideration. Because he listed our combined household income on the guarantee application, and because we'll be legally separated, the guarantee becomes void unless he personally assumes the debt. He'll choose, personally guarantee $7 million in lease payments, or let Van Patten Industries default. Let's see how that promotion looks then. Olivia. I hit send. Brienne arrived early, finding me with coffee and divorce papers Margaret had couriered overnight. Today's the day, she asked. Tuesday is the day. She scanned the settlement terms. You're giving him nothing. The prenup is clear. What's mine stays mine. He has $47,000 in savings, a leased car, and a 401k. That's it. And the apartment? Mine. Purchased before we met. He has 30 days to vacate. What about the building? When are you telling him? I sipped my coffee. I'm not. What? Let him pay rent to Northwest Property Holdings for 3 years, never knowing. Let him hate Alexandra Mills without ever knowing she was his wife. He doesn't get a dramatic confrontation. He gets exactly what he gave me, the slow realization that everything he thought was real was a lie. That's cold, Liv. That's justice. Aaron emerged from the bedroom, stopping when he saw Brienne. Didn't know we had company. Just checking on Olivia, Brienne said smoothly. Heard about your difficult week. Yeah. At least Olivia got her job. He headed for coffee. Starts after Thanksgiving. Same building as Aaron, I added. It'll be nice, working together. Aaron poured coffee, his back to us. Yeah. Nice. The word landed like a stone. I sat in a coffee shop 3 blocks from the building, phone face up, waiting. At 9:52, process server, entering building now. At 10:03, process server, delivered. Subject is in shock. Witness present, Kevin Sidney. It was done. Aaron had the papers. My phone started ringing at 10:09. Aaron's name flashed. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again at 10:11, 10:14. Then texts. Aaron, call me now. Aaron, this is insane. You can't just divorce me out of nowhere. Aaron, Olivia, answer your phone. I silenced my phone and walked home. Aaron burst through the door, divorce papers crumpled in his fist. What the hell is this? You're divorcing me? After everything I've done for you? I stayed seated, hands folded. Yes. You don't just end a marriage with papers served at work. Kevin saw the process server. By lunch, everyone will know. I'm aware. This isn't you. You're not cold like this. You're not calculated. You don't know who I am, I said quietly. You never did. Read the settlement terms, I interrupted. He scanned them, his face changing as he absorbed the details. Prenuptial enforcement. Apartment ownership. 30-day eviction. No alimony. This apartment is yours? His voice cracked. Purchased in 2019, 2 years before we met. Held in the Martin R. Newark Family Trust. But, you said we were renting. I lied. He stared, papers trembling. What else did you lie about? Everything, I wanted to say. But I just met his eyes silently. The car? Leased through a corporate account. Terminates December 1st. My savings account? My account. You're an authorized user. Access revoked this morning. Aaron sank onto the couch, face pale. You've been planning this. For how long? Does it matter? Yes. He was shouting now. You don't just dismantle someone's entire life. I'm your husband. You were my husband. The marriage is over. Because of one bad week? That's what marriage is, supporting each other through hard times. I laughed. The sound surprised us both. Support each other? You've spent 2 years telling me I'm worthless. 2 years of jokes about my unemployment. You created a group chat to mock me. You put me on an allowance in my own apartment. That was tough love. That was cruelty. And I documented every single moment. His face went white. What do you mean? I pulled out my phone, opened a folder. 2 years of recordings. Every cruel comment. Every group chat message. Every video you took without permission. You recorded me? That's illegal. Illinois is one-party consent. I was that party. I opened another folder. I also have financial records showing you've been living off accounts you thought were joint but were mine. Tax returns. Credit card statements. Aaron was shaking. Why would you do this if you loved me? I needed to know if you could love me when you thought I had nothing to offer. You couldn't. Every day, you proved you couldn't. Aaron was packing. 2 suitcases, 3 boxes. Most of what he thought was his actually wasn't. Where will you go? My mother's. Temporarily. The lease you signed Friday, I said carefully. Did you read section 12.3? He froze. What about it? Spousal income consideration clause. You listed our combined income on the guarantee application. We're legally separating. The guarantee is void unless you personally assume the debt. The color drained from his face. I have to personally guarantee $7 million in lease payments? Or Van Patten Industries defaults and loses the building? You knew. When you filed for divorce, you knew. I read contracts carefully. You should try it. He looked at me then, really looked, and saw someone else entirely. Someone who'd been several steps ahead for years. Who are you? Someone you should have treated better. He left at 3:17 p.m., car loaded with fragments of a life that had never been his. I watched from the window as he disappeared into Chicago traffic. I called Patricia. It's done. He's gone. How do you feel? Empty. But in a good way. Like I finally have space to breathe. The assistant job, are you still taking it? I paused. Working in my own building, watching Aaron process his divorce and failed promotion daily. It had seemed like perfect revenge. Now it just seemed exhausting. No. I don't want my life to revolve around his pain. I looked around the empty apartment. Call Linda Monday. Tell her I've accepted a position elsewhere. Recommend someone who actually needs it. What will you do instead? I thought about my grandfather's properties, the nonprofit sector, actually building something instead of destroying. I'm going to figure out who Olivia Newark actually is. Without Aaron, without the test, without the performance. Just me. Brienne found me in the empty apartment, surrounded by Aaron's absence. I'd spent the morning erasing every trace of him. You look terrible, she said, setting down bakery bags. I feel terrible. Regret? No. Just hollow. I thought I'd feel triumphant. Instead, I just feel tired. Brienne pulled out coffee and croissants. Why did you really marry him? What do you mean? You had money, property, independence. Why put yourself through 2 years of abuse to prove a point? I wrapped my hands around the coffee cup. I married him because I thought he loved me. The real me. He pursued me when I was just Olivia, when I was pretending to be a normal marketing director. He seemed kind, attentive, real. And when did that change? Gradually. After the wedding, he started making comments about my job. How my salary was cute compared to his. I paused. Then I realized, if he knew the truth about my wealth, our relationship would shift. He'd either resent me or become dependent. Either way, I'd never know if he actually loved me. So you tested him. I staged the job loss to see if he could love someone he perceived as beneath him. He failed immediately. I set down the cup. But I let it continue for 2 years, thinking maybe he'd realize, maybe he'd show empathy. He never did. Brienne was quiet. Did you ever think the test itself was the problem? What do you mean? You built your marriage on a lie. You pretended to be someone you weren't. How could he love the real you when he never met her? The words hit hard. I gave him chances to show kindness to someone struggling. You orchestrated his failure, Brienne interrupted gently. You created scenarios to magnify his worst traits, then used them to justify revenge. The divorce is done. He's lost everything. At what point is it enough? When he understands what he did. He'll never understand. Men like Aaron just blame everyone else. She paused. But you're not moving on either. You were going to watch him suffer daily. That's not justice, Liv. That's making yourself a witness to his pain. I stood, walking to the window. You sound like you're defending him. I'm not. Aaron deserves everything happening to him. But Grandpa didn't leave you that money to orchestrate revenge plots. He left it so you could build something meaningful. What are you building right now? Thursday, November 23rd, Thanksgiving. At 4 p.m., my phone rang. Unknown number. Olivia? Robert Morrison. Aaron's father. I almost hung up. I was unemployed for 4 years when Aaron was 12 to 16, he said without preamble. Lost my VP position, couldn't find equivalent work. We lost the house. Barbara worked 3 jobs while I fell apart. I said nothing. Aaron watched me become nothing. Watched his mother's resentment grow. By the time I found work again, a warehouse job, He decided that being perceived as successful mattered more than being a good person. That's not my problem. No. But you both suffered from the same thing, fear of vulnerability. You tested him to see if he could love you without power. He tested you by taking power away. You were running experiments on each other instead of being honest. I wasn't cruel to him. No, you were calculating. Which is its own form of cruelty. He sighed. I'm not asking you to forgive him. Just asking you to consider whether winning this war is making you happy. He hung up. I was reviewing the lease agreement, looking for additional leverage points, when I realized what I was doing. Searching for new ways to punish Aaron. New angles to exploit. Brienne was right. Robert was right. This wasn't about justice anymore, it was about control. My grandfather had built his reputation on being tough but fair. On giving second chances. On understanding that power meant responsibility, not just control. What would he think of me now? I walked through Lincoln Park in the cold. Normal people living normal lives. Not orchestrating revenge. Just existing. I sat on a bench and pulled out my phone. Scrolled through recordings I'd collected. Aaron calling me worthless. Aaron mocking my failures. Every word was true. Every recording was evidence. But listening now, I didn't feel vindicated. I just felt sad. I started deleting files. Not all, I kept documentation of actual fraud and violations. But the personal humiliations, the cruel jokes, the group chat screenshots, I deleted them one by one. My camera roll was half empty. I felt lighter. Patricia called. I've been thinking about the assistant position, I said. And? I'm not taking it. I don't want to spend the next year watching Aaron suffer. I don't want my life to revolve around his pain. What will you do instead? I thought about my grandfather's properties, the nonprofit sector, actually building something. I'm going to figure out who Olivia Newark actually is. Without Aaron, without the test. Just me. Your grandfather would be proud. I'd spent 2 years trying to prove Aaron couldn't love me for who I really was. But I'd never shown him who I really was. I'd shown him a character designed to fail, designed to bring out his worst traits so I could justify my revenge. The test itself was flawed. And winning it had left me with nothing but emptiness. I met with Patricia and James Chin in the property management offices. Not in secret this time, not hidden in the basement. I walked through the main entrance of my own building, took the elevator to the management suite on the 3rd floor, and sat in the conference room as myself, Olivia Newark, property owner. I want to restructure how we handle the Van Patten lease, I said, sliding a document across the table. Patricia read it, her eyebrows rising. You want to reduce their rent back to the original $185,000? With conditions, I clarified. They maintain the 3-year term. They remediate all lease violations as agreed. But the personal guarantee gets removed, and the rent stays at current market rate, not the inflated amount we negotiated. James Chin leaned back in his chair. May I ask why? We have a signed contract. They agreed to the higher terms. Because I negotiated that contract as revenge, not as good business. The original rate was fair. The increase was punishment. I met his eyes. I don't want to build my real estate portfolio on spite. What about Aaron? Patricia asked carefully. He'll know something changed. He might start asking questions. Let him ask. He'll get a professional letter from Northwest Property Holdings explaining that upon review, we've decided to adjust the terms to better reflect market conditions. He doesn't need to know it was personal, and he won't. The LLC structure protects that. James made notes on his legal pad. I'll draft the amendment today. Anything else? Yes. I pulled out another document. I want to establish a small business fund, $500,000 annually to provide below-market rent to qualifying small businesses and nonprofits. Startups, community organizations, companies owned by people who've been historically locked out of premium commercial space. Patricia smiled. Your grandfather did something similar in the 90s. Called it the Newark Initiative. I know. I want to restart it. I'd found the old files in his papers, seen how he'd helped dozens of businesses get started by offering them a foothold in buildings they couldn't otherwise afford. And I want to be personally involved. Site visits, interviews with applicants, actually knowing who we're helping and why. This is a significant shift, James observed. Last week you were orchestrating an elaborate revenge plot. This week you're becoming a philanthropist. Last week I was trying to prove something that didn't need proving, I said. This week I'm trying to build something that matters. I was in my apartment, my name was finally on everything properly, Olivia Newark, no Van Patten anywhere, when someone knocked. Through the peephole, I saw Linda Garrett. I opened the door, surprised. Linda? Ms. Newark. She nodded formally. May I come in? I stepped aside, letting her enter. She looked around the apartment with an appraising eye, taking in the high ceilings, the lake view, the expensive furniture. I received a call from Patricia Irwin on Monday, Linda said, still standing. She explained that you were declining the assistant position due to a conflict of interest. She didn't elaborate, but she recommended another candidate who's been excellent. That's good, I said carefully. I did some research after that call. Looked into the property records for our building. Found Northwest Property Holdings LLC, traced it back through several corporate layers to the Martin R. Newark Family Trust. She turned to face me. You own our building. There was no point in denying it. Yes. And you interviewed for a $52,000 assistant position in a building you own. Why? I sat on the couch, gesturing for her to do the same. She remained standing. Honestly? Revenge. My ex-husband works for your company. I was going to take the job to watch him struggle every day. To prove I'd moved on while staying. Close enough to witness his failure. That's disturbing, Linda said flatly. Yes. It is. Which is why I declined the position. Linda finally sat, her posture rigid. Aaron Van Patten came to me last week. Asked if I'd reconsidered the assistant hire, if maybe you weren't suitable after all. He seemed eager to have you not work in the building. What did you tell him? That personnel decisions weren't subject to employee input. She paused. I didn't like him before that conversation. Afterward, I understood why someone might want to orchestrate elaborate revenge against him. Despite everything, I smiled slightly. He has that effect on people. The lease renegotiation. That was you too, wasn't it? Alexandra Mills? I nodded. You eviscerated him. I heard about it from Daniel Park. Said it was the most brutal negotiation he'd witnessed in 20 years. Linda's expression remained neutral. And now you're reducing the rent back to market rate. Why? Because I don't want to be the kind of person who uses business as a weapon for personal grievances. My grandfather built his reputation on being tough but fair. I want to honor that, not corrupt it with spite. Linda stood, smoothing her skirt. I came here to tell you that if you ever pull something like that assistant interview again, using your position as building owner to manipulate employees, I'll report it to every business ethics board in Chicago. That's fair. But I also came to say that the lease amendment is appreciated. Van Patten Industries was struggling with the increased costs. The reduction means we won't have to lay off 15 people in January. She walked to the door, then paused. Your grandfather was a good man. I worked in one of his buildings early in my career, back in the late 90s. He gave my boss, a single mother with 3 kids, below market rent for 5 years until she could afford standard rates. She still talks about him. After Linda left, I sat in the quiet apartment, thinking about legacy. About the difference between destroying someone who hurt you and building something that outlasts the hurt. I met Brienne for lunch at a cafe near her office in the Loop. You look different, she said, studying my face. Lighter. I deleted most of the recordings. The revenge plot ones. Kept only what's necessary for legal protection, but let go of the rest. How does that feel? Terrifying and liberating. I picked at my salad. I spent 2 years collecting evidence against Aaron. It became my identity, the wronged wife, the secret avenger. Without that role, I'm not sure who I am. You're Olivia Newark, Brienne said firmly. Owner of a commercial real estate portfolio worth $47 million. Granddaughter of Martin Newark. Someone with the resources and intelligence to build something meaningful. I've been thinking about the Newark Initiative. Grandfather's program for helping small businesses. The one you're restarting? I want to expand it. Not just rent subsidies, but mentorship. Business planning support. Access to capital through microloans. Actually helping people build something sustainable, not just giving them cheap office space. Brienne's face lit up. That's incredible, Liv. That's the kind of thing that changes lives. I met with a consultant yesterday. Someone who specializes in nonprofit structure and community development. We're exploring whether to run it through a foundation or as part of the existing LLC. I set down my fork. It's terrifying. I've spent so long hiding, operating through shell companies and encrypted communications. The idea of doing something public, putting my name on it, is exactly what you need, Brienne finished. Grandfather was never afraid to be known. He used his visibility to do good work. You've been hiding for so long, you forgot that being seen isn't always dangerous. I was reviewing applications for the Newark Initiative when my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Olivia Newark. Professional, distant. It's Aaron. My chest tightened. How did you get this number? Your attorney. I had mine call to arrange a meeting about property division. He paused. But that's not why I'm calling. Then why are you calling? I got the lease amendment. The rent reduction. I don't understand why, but, thank you. I was silent, processing. My promotion is back on the table, he continued. With the reduced rent, the board reconsidered my performance. They're announcing it next week, Executive VP of Operations. Congratulations, I said, and meant it. Not because I wanted him to succeed, but because I no longer needed him to fail. Olivia, I've been thinking about everything that happened. The divorce, the way I treated you, all of it. I know I can't fix it. But I wanted you to know that I'm in therapy. Really in therapy, not just court-ordered sessions. That's good, Aaron. My therapist asked me to write down every time I made you feel small. Every joke, every comment, every public humiliation. His voice cracked. It filled 17 pages, Olivia. 17 pages of documented cruelty, and that's just what I remember. I don't know how you stayed as long as you did. I was trying to prove something, I said quietly. Trying to test whether you could love me without power. But the test itself was flawed. I never gave you the chance to know the real me. Would it have made a difference? If I'd known about your money, your properties? I don't know. Maybe. Maybe not. I looked out at the lake, gray and vast under winter clouds. But we'll never find out, and that's probably for the best. I'm sorry, he said. For all of it. You deserved better. Yes, I did. But Aaron? So did you. We both deserved honesty, not tests and performances and power games. I paused. I hope therapy helps. I hope you figure out how to be the kind of person who can love someone without needing to diminish them. I hope you figure out how to let someone love you without testing them first, he said softly. After we hung up, I sat with those words. He was right. I'd been so focused on Aaron's failures that I hadn't examined my own. The elaborate deception. The 2-year test. The cold calculation of every move. We'd both been broken people breaking each other, and calling it love. Friday, December 8th, morning. The first Newark Initiative recipient was a woman named Maria Santos, who ran a nonprofit providing legal services to immigrants. She'd been operating out of a church basement, struggling to afford even basic office space. I met her at the building, showed her the suite on the 6th floor, 2 offices, a conference room, a small reception area. Newly renovated, flooded with natural light. The rent is $800 monthly for the first year, I explained. Below market, obviously. After that, we'll reassess based on your organization's growth and ability to pay. Maria's eyes filled with tears. I can't, this is too much. My grandfather believed that opportunity shouldn't be locked behind gates of capital. That sometimes people just need a foothold, a chance to prove what they can build. I handed her the keys. Prove it. Help people. Build something that matters. She moved in the following week. By the end of December, I'd approved 3 more initiative recipients, a tech startup founded by former foster youth, a community arts organization, and a women's health clinic. Each one felt like a small redemption. Each one was a choice to build instead of destroy. The Newark Initiative had grown beyond anything I'd imagined. 12 businesses now operated in my buildings at subsidized rates. Maria Santos's nonprofit had helped 73 immigrant families navigate legal challenges. The tech startup had secured series of funding and was expanding. The arts organization had launched a summer program for underserved kids. I sat in my office, not hidden, not secret, but a proper office on the 3rd floor with my name on the door, reviewing the quarterly impact report Patricia had compiled. Every number told a story of people building something meaningful with the foothold we'd provided. You have a visitor, Patricia said through the intercom. Linda Garrett from Van Patten Industries. Send her in. Linda entered with a younger woman I didn't recognize. Olivia, this is my niece, Jessica. She just graduated from Northwestern with a degree in urban planning. She's looking for her first professional opportunity. I stood, shaking Jessica's hand. Her grip was firm but nervous. Jessica's interested in community development and affordable housing, Linda continued. When she told me about her thesis on innovative lease structures for nonprofit organizations, I immediately thought of the Newark Initiative. I gestured for them to sit. Tell me about your thesis. Jessica pulled out a bound document, her enthusiasm overcoming her nerves. I studied 15 cities and their approaches to subsidizing commercial space for community organizations. Most programs fail because they're not sustainable, the subsidies run out, or the organizations can't transition to market rates. But your model is different. How so? You're not just giving discounts. You're creating a pipeline. Organizations start in your buildings at reduced rates, but they're also connected to business mentorship, potential investors, and a network of other initiative recipients. You're building an ecosystem, not just providing charity. I'd never thought of it that way, but she was right. The 12 organizations had started collaborating, sharing resources, referring clients to each other. We'd accidentally created a community. What are you proposing? I asked. An internship. Or a job. Whatever you'd be willing to offer. I want to learn how to scale this model, how to make it replicable in other cities. Jessica's eyes were bright with possibility. What you're doing here could change how commercial real estate intersects with community development nationally. I looked at Linda, who was watching her niece with obvious pride. We don't have formal internship structures yet, I said slowly. But we could create one. Patricia, what do you think? Patricia, who'd been listening from the doorway, nodded. We've been discussing hiring someone to help with initiative administration. Applications are increasing faster than we can process them. Jessica could help build those systems while learning the business. Then let's do it, I decided. Jessica, can you start Monday? After they left, Patricia lingered in my office. That was generous. That was strategic, I corrected. We need help, and she has fresh ideas. Plus, Linda Garrett recommending her niece to work for me feels like a full circle moment. Speaking of full circles, Patricia said carefully, Aaron Van Patten's lease renewal negotiation is coming up in November. The 3-year term expires. My stomach tightened reflexively, then relaxed. When November comes, we'll negotiate in good faith. Market rates, fair terms, professional courtesy. No games. You've come a long way from Alexandra Mills. Alexandra Mills was a character I created to wound someone who wounded me. Turns out, being that person was more exhausting than just being myself. August 3rd, evening. Brienne and her girlfriend Maya were hosting a dinner party at their new condo in Wicker Park. I arrived with wine and homemade dessert, feeling nervous in a way I hadn't anticipated. There's someone here we want you to meet, Brienne whispered when she answered the door. Brie, if this is a setup. It's not a setup. It's just dinner. With a completely platonic guest who happens to be single, brilliant, and someone I think you genuinely like talking to. She pulled me inside. No pressure. No expectations. Just, be yourself. Your actual self, not a character. The guest was Dr. Sarah Brennan, a professor of economics at UChicago who specialized in urban development and equitable growth. She was 41, with salt and pepper hair and laugh lines around her eyes. When Brienne introduced us, Sarah's handshake was warm, her smile genuine. Olivia Newark, she said. I've been reading about the Newark Initiative. Fascinating work. The lease structure you've developed is getting attention in academic circles. Academic circles? I sat across from her at the dinner table, intrigued. There's a theory in development economics about the bootstrap paradox. How do people without capital access opportunities that require capital? Your initiative is a practical solution. You're essentially creating a ladder with built-in rungs at different heights. We talked through dinner about commercial real estate, community development, the intersection of profit and social good. Sarah had spent 2 years in Rwanda studying microfinance structures. She had ideas about how the initiative could scale, could become a model for other property owners. You should write about this, she said over dessert. Document what you're learning. The successes, the failures, the unexpected challenges. It could be valuable for others trying to do similar work. I'm not a writer, I protested. You're a storyteller, though, Brienne interjected. You spent 2 years crafting an elaborate narrative. Maybe it's time to craft one that's actually true. After dinner, Sarah and I stood on the balcony while the others cleaned up. The city stretched out below us, thousands of windows glowing in the summer darkness. Can I ask you something personal? Sarah said. Sure. Brienne mentioned you went through a difficult divorce recently. Are you okay? The question was direct but kind. I considered deflecting, then decided against it. I'm better than okay. The divorce was necessary. The marriage was built on tests and performances and neither of us being honest about who we really were. I looked out at the city. I spent 2 years trying to prove my ex-husband couldn't love me without power. Turned out, I couldn't love him without control. We were both broken in complementary ways. That's very self-aware. It's very expensive therapy aware, I corrected, and she laughed. I like honesty, Sarah said. In my experience, the most interesting people are the ones who've done the work to understand their own damage. We exchanged numbers before I left. No promises, no expectations. Just the possibility of coffee sometime, of continuing a conversation that felt easy in ways I'd forgotten conversation could be. I was in my office when Margaret Chin called. The divorce is final, she said. All paperwork is processed. You're officially Olivia Newark again, no Van Patten anywhere. Thank you, Margaret. There's one more thing. Aaron's attorney contacted me about the property settlement. Apparently, Aaron wants to sign over his claim to the wedding gifts and some furniture in exchange for a letter. A letter? From you. Acknowledging that the marriage failed because of both of your choices, not just his cruelty. Margaret paused. You don't have to do this. The settlement is finalized. He has no leverage. I thought about Aaron in therapy, filling 17 pages with documented cruelty. Thought about my own calculations, my 2-year test, my elaborate revenge plot that I'd ultimately abandoned. I'll write the letter, I said. Not because he deserves it, but because it's true. We both made choices that destroyed what could have been. I spent an hour drafting it, trying to be honest without being cruel. Aaron. Our marriage failed because we were both testing each other instead of trusting each other. You tested whether I'd stay when you diminished me. I tested whether you could love me without power. We were both so focused on proving something that we forgot to actually build something. You were cruel. That's documented, undeniable. But I was calculated. I constructed scenarios designed to bring out your worst traits, then used those traits to justify my decisions. We both weaponized vulnerability instead of honoring it. I hope you find someone you can love without needing to control. I hope I find someone I can love without needing to test. We weren't right for each other, but that doesn't mean we're wrong for everyone. Olivia. I signed it, sealed it, sent it through Margaret. The Newark Initiative's 1-year anniversary celebration was held in the building's renovated community space. All 12 recipient organizations were there, along with their employees, volunteers, and community members they served. Maria Santos gave a speech about how the affordable space had allowed her nonprofit to triple its service capacity. The tech startup founders talked about how the initiative had given them credibility with investors. The arts organization's kids performed a short play they'd written. I stood at the back, watching, feeling something I hadn't felt in years, pride without performance. This was real. These people, these organizations, this impact, it was all genuine. Sarah Brennan was there too. We'd been seeing each other casually for 2 months, coffee dates, museum visits, long walks discussing urban development theory. Nothing rushed, nothing tested. Just honest conversations with someone who knew my full story and didn't need me to be anyone other than myself. You did this, she said, standing beside me. We did this. Patricia, James, the whole team. No, Sarah insisted gently. You chose to build instead of destroy. That choice, that's what made all of this possible. Patricia approached with a woman I didn't recognize. Olivia, this is Rachel Kim. She owns a commercial property portfolio in Seattle. She read about the initiative in an urban development journal and flew here to learn more. Rachel shook my hand enthusiastically. I want to replicate this model in Seattle. Would you be willing to consult? Help us set up something similar? I looked at Patricia, who was already nodding. We've been getting inquiries like this for months. There's demand for this approach nationally. Let's talk, I said to Rachel. Let me connect you with Jessica, she's been documenting everything we've learned. But yes, I'd be happy to help. As the celebration continued around me, I stepped outside for air. The autumn evening was cool, the sun setting over the Chicago River, painting the water gold and orange. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Thank you for the letter. You were right about everything. Good luck with whatever you build next. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. Aaron and I had been each other's lesson, painful, necessary, complete. I deleted the message and went back inside, back to the celebration, back to the community I was building. Back to a life defined not by revenge or vindication, but by the simple, radical act of using power to create rather than destroy. Somewhere in the past year, I'd stopped being the wronged wife playing elaborate games. I'd become Olivia Newark, property owner, community developer, woman building a legacy worth leaving. And that, finally, was enough. My husband laughed when I couldn't find work for 3 years. He called me worthless, made me feel small, built his entire identity on being superior to me. But he never knew that the building where he worked, where he felt so powerful, belonged to me all along. The revenge I'd planned was brutal and complete. But the redemption I'd found was better. I'd learned that the opposite of cruelty isn't revenge, it's creation. The opposite of being diminished isn't diminishing others, it's building something so meaningful that the past loses its power over you. I owned a $14 million building. But what I'd really built was a life where that fact mattered less than what I chose to do with it. And that was the real victory. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.